So a couple of days ago on social media, I asked you guys what you think is the most challenging aspect of teaching English. So let's take a look at some of your replies. It would be classroom management for me. Definitely classroom management. Classroom management. Reining in my northern accent so the Chinese kids don't sound like they're off the TV program Shameless. I'm from Bristol, are you? So I can relate to that, I can. Hi, my name's Gemma Perry and welcome to Mooncake, where ESL teaching is made easy. If you're new here, then you need to know that I make weekly ESL teaching tip videos to help you improve your English teaching. So if you are teaching ESL abroad, make sure you subscribe below and hit that notification bell for weekly ESL teaching tips. Also, real quick, if you are new here, say hi in the comments below and let me know where in the world you're teaching. So a large number of you find that classroom management is your biggest challenge. So today we're going to talk about that and see what we can do to help. Now, I've actually already made a video on classroom management, which you can find right here. So if you haven't yet, make sure you check it out, linked below. Now in that video, I talk about how often students' behavior comes down to us and the lack of planning and thought that we put into our lesson plans. So today we're going to talk about lesson planning and how to plan a lesson effectively to try and help prevent that unwanted behavior in the class. So make sure you stay tuned right to the end, where I'll be sharing my top 5 points that you have to consider when planning your lesson. So with all of that out of the way, let's get started by looking at our lesson structure. Now, all the information I'm sharing today is available on the Mooncake English website. And if you go to the freebies section, you're able to download a free Mooncake English lesson planner. So make sure you check it out. Setting goals is the first step to lesson planning. If you don't know what your goals are, then how can you make a plan to achieve them? And this is more than just knowing what your curriculum is. You need to think about where your students are now and where you would like them to be at the end of the lesson so that you can create a plan to achieve that. But goals need to be clear, simple, and achievable. There's no point in setting a goal like this: I want my kids to be able to talk about family by the end of the lesson. A clearer, more achievable goal might be something like this. Students will be able to recognize and repeat 3 new words related to the topic of family. Of course, everyone's goals are going to be different depending on your students, the subject that you're teaching, and where they are with their learning. Now, the warm-up is usually around 5 minutes, and its purpose is to grab students' attention and focus so that you can create the right conditions to start introducing new material. If you're looking for some fun warm-up ideas, then you can check out these videos, or if you're teaching very young learners, then this video will cater to their age group. All the links are in the description below. The warm-up is also an opportunity to review previous material. So you might want to play a game that students already know how to play using language that you've already taught. Now, we use the warm-up to get students' attention, but it should still have purpose, and it should be linked somehow into either previously taught material or material that you're about to teach. Now, before we start thinking about how to introduce new material to students, we need to think about how we're going to transition from that warm-up into the next section of the class. Now, one mistake that newer teachers do make is that they use too much language to explain what they're about to move on to. Okay, everybody, now we're going to talk about the weather, all right? We're going to look outside and I want everybody to tell me what they think the weather is, okay? If your students are quite young or their English level is quite low, then try to minimize this incidental language, because there's just too much the students don't understand. You're going to lose their attention and you're going to start to see some of that unwanted behavior. Look outside. Look outside. Are you ready? What's the weather? What's the weather? Note the repetition and the rhythmic chant. Remember, this has to be straight after your warm-up without any pauses, otherwise you're going to lose students' attention and you'll start to see some of that unwanted behavior. Now that our students are warmed up, we're ready to introduce some new material. Now, we all know that we need to use some flashcards or Aurelia to help students understand the meaning of the words that we're teaching. However, it's not enough just to put up a flashcard and have students repeat the word. We need to find fun ways for students to discover the flashcard or set a fun activity for students to complete in order to be rewarded with a flashcard. Now, I've quite a few ideas and examples of this in this playlist, such as cups and what's in the box. So if you need some ideas about how to introduce new vocabulary to students, make sure you check it out, linked below. Once students have discovered a flashcard or completed a task and been rewarded with one, then you need to introduce that word using TPR and chants. This means that you need to have a chant and an action planned for each word that you're planning to teach so that you're not just making things up on the spot. Really take some time to think about how many times you're going to repeat words and what actions and chants you're going to use. If you're not sure how to use TPR in your class, class, then you can check out my video on TPR linked below. So by now we've warmed up the class and we've introduced our target language by having students discover materials in a fun way or by completing a fun task. Next, we need to practice this language in a sentence. The best way to do this is by playing a game. But how do we choose the right game? Well, we need to consider the student's age, their English level, and the number of students in the class. Generally speaking, competitive games don't work so well for those younger students in that 2 to 4-year-old bracket. And this is because the games can be quite complex and students at this age haven't quite grasped the idea of competition. So instead, for that age group, one of those vocabulary games that I mentioned earlier might be enough. Students over 4 years, however, love team games, and the competition between peers can be very motivating. But you do need to choose a game that works for the class and the subject that you're teaching. Make sure you're choosing a game that's going to fit in the timescale that you have. If you choose a game that's too complex or takes too long to play, then you might not have time to finish. Lastly, when choosing a game, you need to think about how you can keep everybody engaged. If you just have those 2 students playing at one time, what strategies could you use to try and keep everyone's attention? Otherwise, if only 2 students are playing, everyone else is going to get bored while they wait for their turn, and again, you're going to see some of that unwanted behavior. A simple example would be to have the whole class chant questions together to the students that are playing the games. And then you can give points to whichever team is chanting the best. For a whole load of fun game ideas, you can check out this playlist linked below. Finally, the dismissal. How are you going to end the class? Well, I would start by thinking about the next activity after your class. Now, if you're a teacher that finishes the class and leaves, then maybe a goodbye song is the way to go. However, if you're a homeroom teacher and you're not leaving the class when you finish, then why would you sing a goodbye song? Are your students going to be rushing to the bathroom after your class? In which case, a staggered dismissal might be best. In fact, we can even add in some review here by asking questions to students one by one before dismissing them. I personally like to have students review their personal introduction before leaving my class. Okay, so by now we have our goals and our lesson structure, but how do we time everything? Well, of course, that would depend on the length of your class. Now, this table right here gives you a rough guide on how you can time your lesson. Let's look at the top 5 tips that you have to consider when planning your lesson. Plan activities with a logical link. If your class flows well from one activity to another, then students are more likely to stay engaged and learn faster. For example, if your main subject for the class is family, then you might want to warm up with the Family Finger song. Think about the pace of your class. If you're planning a fun and exciting game that you know is going to get students' energy levels up, then make sure you follow that activity with a calmer one. Plan adjustments for the different levels of English in your class. Now, every class has that 1 or 2 student who either has a higher level of English or a lower level than the majority of the class. Think about how you can adjust your activities so that they can also be involved. Really think about how to introduce different activities to students in a way that they'll understand. Minimize that inconsequential language and demonstrate with an assistant teacher if you need to. Review your class after teaching it. What went well? What didn't go so well? Did your kids go crazy? If they did, at what point did they go crazy? And what can you do next time to try and prevent it? So there you have it. We've talked about setting goals, we've talked about the structure of your class, and the main points that you need to consider when making your plan to try and help prevent that unwanted behavior. Go ahead and visit the Mooncake English website, click on that freebies page, and download your free lesson planner. Keep a record of all your classes and start building your lesson portfolio today. If you like this video, let me know by hitting that like button and by commenting with the word helpful in the comments below. If you're looking for more classroom management ideas, then make sure you check out my video right here. That's it for this video. Thanks so much for watching. You can find me on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, or if you're interested in a mooncake sweatshirt or mug, you can find them linked below. And of course, remember to subscribe and hit that notification bell for more weekly ESL teaching tips from Mooncake.